Sup guys? Happy 7th anniversary. I'm going to go over the new content and give you my thoughts on the new additions. That might be relevant gameplay-wise, but it's just the first day, so my opinions could change after I get around to testing the new stuff. If you want to read every little detail of the Datamine, there will be a link to it in the description. All of the ships are also added to MrLar's database as well, so check that out if you want. Alright, I'm a man of the people. The people's champ, as they say. So I'm just going to start with Essex Retrofit, because I'm sure that's what everyone is here for. Much like Mecklenburg did with Firepower, Essex's Retrofit seems to have pushed the aviation stat way past the previous limit, which was Nakimov at only 468 at level 125. While the base aviation number is only a small part of the entire formula, she also has the highest base reload out of all full-size carriers, which is much more relevant since the strongest planes in the game right now are quite slow. Here, in bold red letters, we can see that she can now equip any planes in her second slot, allowing for double fighter specialization if you're against a medium armor enemy or just need anti-air, as well as double torpedo bomber for anti-heavy specialization. This is a bit less of a tangible upgrade, but a significant one, as dive bombers are the weakest plane type at the moment, and carriers that are forced to use one find themselves falling behind in a lot of scenarios. The retrofit also upgrades her first skill, giving her an extra barrage at the start of battle, adding tracking to her torpedo bomber barrage, and also changing her damage bonus from just battleships to all heavy armor enemies. As for the tracking strength, I checked it on MrLar's database and it matches that of the Iron Blood magnetic torpedoes, but their speed is a little bit higher. I explained what this means in my recent in-depth torpedo guide, but in summary, the torpedoes launched in her barrage will have just slightly weaker tracking than Iron Blood magnetic torpedoes, but still quite a bit better than the tracking on the USS ones. Since the retrofit is time-gated for a week, I can't show you the upgraded barrage in action just yet, but I think this is a decently big upgrade that might almost double the amount of torpedoes that the barrage will land on a single target, although there's no way it'll have a 100% hit rate against one target, because of just how spread the torpedoes are when they're dropped. However, in campaign where there are many enemies, I feel like most of the torpedoes that might have narrowly missed an enemy will now probably home in on a target and the hit rate will be close to 100%. Her new skill adds a rocket barrage. You can think of it like an addition to the torpedo one because it activates at the start and on every airstrike, just like the old one. So they're coming out at the same time every time. This rocket barrage has the same modifiers across all three armor types, so in total, her barrages are slightly skewed toward heavy armor. Aside from that, the skill slowly ramps up the part of her second skill that gives her 3% aviation when she shoots down enemy planes, so she doesn't miss out on too much even if you use her in a fight that doesn't have enemy planes, but it stacks up to 5 times, which will still take quite a long time if there are no incoming planes. Putting it all together, here's where I think her power level will be compared to other carriers. As a solo carrier, I think she'll be very competent just because she has a ton of stats to back up her 6-fighter loadout. She should be quite a bit stronger than Yorktown 2 and Haku, and should find herself somewhere among the cream of the crop of the best carriers. Against light armor, she should be second only to Fritz Rume, who has an even more specialized loadout without the requirement to bring a torpedo bomber. Essex would probably be tied for second place with a solo Nakimov. Against medium armor, both Fritz Rume and Nakimov have similarly powerful fighter-oriented loadouts, but they also help out the entire team with various forms of debuffs, so I would place her in third place at best. Against heavy armor is where it gets kind of interesting. Typically, you'd probably want to bring Shinano and Amagi for the highest amount of raw damage, but if you need a route because the boss moves too much, it would actually be a better idea to bring Soyuz and Nakimov instead of Implacable with Shinano and Amagi. And then in the last main fleet slot, Essex could potentially be stronger than Amagi if your vanguard doesn't have a strong torpedo user like Unzen, who would greatly benefit from Amagi's buff. These estimates could be off depending on whether her torpedo barrage has a better or worse hit rate than I'm picturing in my mind, but I'm very confident that she's much closer to the top 4 than the bottom 3. Now, when we consider full team comps, it gets a lot more complicated because you have to take into account vanguard compositions, not only in terms of what is hypothetically the highest damaging vanguard, but also a vanguard that can survive the fight. And then also how much slow support you need could also completely change what the best fleet is. You would also have to consider whether it would be worth bringing Essex, or any carrier for that matter, over battleships. It's pretty easy to see that Essex, who's already strong, would benefit greatly from the buffs offered by Kearsarge and Yorktown 2, and I look forward to trying her out against Kawakaze meta, since she'll still be around by the time Essex's full retrofit can be completed. In summary, Essex got a huge glow up, not only in her dapper appearance, but also damage output. She can now do the coveted 6-fighter loadout, which is so good for so many situations, but past that, I think her extremely high reload stat as well as damage against heavy armor, being able to also use a 5-torpedo bomber loadout, might end up catching people by surprise at how flexible and strong she is. I still feel like her second and third skill are too outdated and kinda useless. I wish her second skill could be activated by just having a USS plane equipped, like so many other modern carriers, and her third skill would have a chance to reduce all damage, as enemy aviation damage is very rare in the game. But even without that, you won't regret investing your resources into retrofitting her. Okay, that took quite a bit of time, but I have a feeling we're going to get through the rest of the update pretty quickly. Let's take a look at the new ships. Masena is kinda interesting. Even though her stats are pretty low, she has the potential to chain her barrage with itself up to 3 times every time she fires her main gun. The activation chance starts at 40%, but the more the main fleet fires their main guns, the higher the chance gets, and the maximum chance is up to 98%, so once she stacks her buffs, she actually ends up being quite strong. The unfortunate part is, she absolutely needs those stacks, so you'd probably want to run her with a couple of other preloaded battleships and have them fire before her to give her stacks right off the bat, which is obviously completely fine when you're doing a French-themed fleet with something like Alsace and Richelieu, but this makes her not that great for a campaign where you can't really afford to run 3 battleships, and she ends up taking quite a long time to ramp up. If you're using her for a single enemy boss fight, maybe in a full French fleet, she could end up being even one of the strongest options on the level of Flandre, let's say, but in general, she would still have to compete with all the Rainbow battleships, which is no contest. Next up is Bois Belleau. Her damage is okay and she has high reload. Her second skill reduces the cooldown of her first 2 airstrikes by 50%, so the second airstrike goes off at about the same time as other ships' first, which means it actually doesn't help her desync much from other ships. But yeah, her upfront damage will be pretty insane, since she'll get 2 airstrikes off in 20 seconds or so. She might be a decent option just to stick in the Operations Hour mob fleet. Next up is ALDB. She's pretty decent as well. She has 2 powerful barrages, one timed on her first skill and then her all-out assault, and she also increases the cannon damage of your vanguard if you have a French ship as a tank. Aside from that, both are 30% slow for 6 seconds every 20 seconds, as well as the 10% main fleet damage reduction with no condition, while not game-breaking in any way, are both quite helpful as well. You're not going to bring her just for these minor buffs, but they will contribute if you do choose to use her. Since her all-out assault is quite strong, this is a ship that would greatly benefit from the all-out assault perk, which most, if not all, French destroyers have, so I really have no clue why she got the bonus auxiliary stats perk instead. A French destroyer vanguard with Mogador, L'Audacieux, and l'ALDB could be fun and surprisingly potent in damage output and survivability, but unfortunately severely lacking in anti-air for Chapter 15. I took a brief look at the SR ships, and Duguay's skill can't make up for her lackluster stats, and Ducan's evasion buffs are wasted on her low base HP. Okay, lastly, let's take a look at the PR Fate Sims. Bayard got straightforward damage buffs. Her damage was already insane for a gold ship, and this makes it better, but it doesn't really make her too much better or shift her relative ranking on my tier list, since the ships in front of her are not there because they do more damage overall, but because of other things they offer. Next is Dyson. They made her barrage a bit stronger, combining the 2 alternating effects in her pre-Fate Sim barrage into one. This gets her even closer to the likes of Warspite and New Jersey, maybe even on par, but again only against light armor. She still doesn't heal. I don't know why that isn't the part they changed instead, because if she healed the Vanguard for 8% every time she fired, she would actually be really useful. In this clip I took, with her Fate Sim, you can see her sending out her recon plane, but it's just too tanky, even San Diego can't shoot it down. But jokes aside, there's just barely any opportunity for allied planes to be shot down in PvE. Only rarely will there be an anti-airship in late game campaign stages, but they have very low HP and are killed almost instantly most of the time, so Dyson never ever really gets to activate her heal. Finally, we have Halford. The big thing here is her improved airstrike. You can see in the footage that 8 planes are launched from her airstrike, which is double of what it used to be. This should be a sizable upgrade, and I will definitely look to test her out now, but I remain skeptical. All of the non-carrier ships that deal aviation damage just get absolutely walled by any enemy with anti-air because they don't have the concealment mechanic that carriers have. It just reduces aviation damage by so much that it's hard for me to see it being good, especially on top of the long cooldown of her airstrike. A ship like Kearsarge still does amazing damage, because even without her planes, her guns and firepower barrages are still really strong, but for Halford, she's pretty much relying on her planes to be competitive with other ships. Okay, before I wrap up, I wanted to talk about a couple of the skins. These aren't the only ones I'm interested in, but I just had some thoughts I wanted to share. First, this Enterprise swimsuit kinda hits on every single point I said I liked in a skin, having a relaxed side pose that makes use of the horizontal home screen layout. She also has body jewelry and an anklet, which I'm a huge fan of. Okay, but why the hell are her feet being blocked by the buttons on the right side by default? I hope that will be taken into account next time when deciding the pose. Also, there were some sentiments of there not being enough wholesome, safe for work skins, and I think Enterprise is probably one of the best girls to make wholesome skins for, while there are plenty who could rock a swimsuit, like Belfast for example, if we want to look for ships in the same generation as Enterprise, so that could maybe have been handled a little bit better. I don't really share those sentiments though, so this is an easy buy for me. Next up is the Anchorage Live 2D Plus skin. A couple of concerns I had with the Live 2D Plus announcement was the price increase, which I think is very fair at only 80 gems over normal Live 2D. And then the possibility that the rest of the skin might not be as polished because more of the attention will be put on the plus part. But I mean, this skin looks amazing. The pose and point of view don't make her look awkward in any way. The lighting is nice, and there are still interactions outside of the Live 2D Plus thing. So even though I don't care too much about the plus part, it's still a great skin. Alright, that's pretty much it for this video. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.